Let's talk about the return of vintage decor. Hi everybody, I'm Michelle from Wildish Living and thanks for joining me for another video. Today we're going to talk about why we love vintage and why it seems to be making a resurgence in popularity. Now, I know for many of us, we have always loved vintage. It's in our blood and we can't stop. We can't help ourselves but picking up and buying lots of beautiful vintage things. But for other people, I feel like it is a new trend that has become a lot more popular, especially in the last couple of years, and a lot more people have become interested in adding vintage to their decor. It's just something that with the current design styles that we have, I think it really has a place in it and really fits into the multiple different design trends that we have going on now. So another way you can tell that vintage has become popular is because all the prices have skyrocketed over the last few years. Where you used to be able to pick up stuff for a couple bucks, these secondhand stores are now charging like $10, $20 for something that used to cost like $3 to $5. It's a little bit crazy if you ask me. But that's one way to show that the demand is there for these vintage pieces. So we know that the pandemic has really changed our lives a lot, some for the better, some for the worse. We were forced to spend a lot more time in our homes, and that really made us think about how we use our space, how we decorate, how we function in it, and what could we improve to make it a more enjoyable place to live in. We discovered that we wanted to make our homes more comfortable, more personal, and a place that really speaks to us and shows off our personality and character with the decorations and furniture that we choose to put in it. And to many, history, meaning, and sentimentality became a lot more important to us, and we wanted to incorporate that into our home as well. People wanted to surround themselves with things that made them feel loved and cherished and connected. So vintage fits the bill for most of those things. It adds character, has a story, it has sentimental value, and it reminds me of, well, it reminds all of us of people that we love and our ancestors. It feels better to buy something old, worn, and tarnished than to buy something mass-produced from overseas that harms the environment. I know I like to do my part to save the environment and reduce the amount of garbage and junk that I put into landfills. So one of the reasons why I really love vintage is for that factor, is the reusing, the recycling, the not producing more stuff aspect of it. And I think that's what really appeals to a lot of people as well. There's so many vintage options available that there's something that can fit every budget and every design style. Some people love to showcase their collections and they pick one thing and they collect it and they will showcase that in a beautiful way in their decor. And some people just like to pepper it through their entire decor and use some decor items and some furniture and kind of mix it with all the modern stuff that they also have. There's no right or wrong way to use vintage. Again, it goes to your personal taste and aesthetic, and just buying pieces that you love, they're always going to find a place in your home. And I think one of the best things about using vintage is finding the items. It's the thrill of the hunt, the adventure when you go looking for something that you never know what you're going to find. If you have something specific in mind, you might never find that piece, but you also might come across something that you never knew you wanted until you saw it. And then it's love at first sight and it has to come home with you. And the thrill of the hunt is very contagious, and once you start, you might not be able to stop. Going to thrift stores, antique malls, and flea markets and auctions is also a great way to spend time with friends or family. It can get you out of the house, have a little adventure. You never know what the day is going to bring you. So it's just a great way to get yourself out, get out doing things, and find some beautiful vintage stuff that you can then bring back to your home. And then you also have memories of that day spent with your family and friends. And the best thing is when you come across something that you've been searching for possibly years and never thought that you would find it, and then one day suddenly it's there right in front of you, and it is the best feeling in the world. Now I'm going to go into this a little deeper in a future video, but I wanted to cover off some of the current design styles for 2023. and even the past year or two, on how vintage fits into some of these decor styles, and the reasons why, again, vintage become more popular and why it fits into these different design styles. Before I go into all these styles, though, I want to remind you that you don't have to fit any one of these specific design aesthetics or styles. You should buy all the pieces that you love, that make you happy, that you want to have in your home and look at. And don't worry about what style they are or that you can only have certain things. Buy what you love, what brings you joy, which you can't stop looking at, and you will find a way to make all those things work in your decor. There's always going to be a way. So just buy the stuff that you love and don't think, well, it's not this aesthetic, so I can't buy it. If you love it, you get it, and we can work that into your decor. It's great to mix, one or two or even all the styles together. It's going to work if you have pieces that you love, that make you happy. It's going to look good no matter what. There's a way to tie it all together, and you just have to kind of sometimes take a step back and say, how can we organize these things so that it looks great together? I think that an eclectic look using vintage and modern in a mix is always going to be the best way to use vintage in our modern homes, because it kind of ties it all together, the new and the old, and you can have things that are well functioning and just the way that you need them, but you can mix and match that character and that charm into your decor by mixing it all together. So I think it's the best of both worlds, and I think that's why vintage is so popular right now. And I don't know that it will ever go out of style, because we're always going to be reusing things from the past. And I think anyone that embraces using vintage in their decor is going to find it a lot easier moving forward to want to buy less things all the time, and kind of buy good pieces that they really love, and not feel like they have to redo their decor every year because the trends change. If you start to buy timeless pieces that you really love, you won't really need to continuously redecorate. Maybe painting a wall here or there to, add a color that speaks to you that is now on trend. And then it's an easy thing to do down the road is to change that out. But if you have those core furniture pieces and decor items that you love, they're going to fit into any decor styles at any time in your life, no matter what. If you love them, you keep them. So I think that that's a really important aspect of why people are using vintage. And I think that we really need to look at the environmental impact of all the stuff that we're mass producing right now. And sure, it's beautiful to go into some of those decor stores with the really inexpensive, pretty pieces that don't cost a lot and bring them home. But then you end up just getting so much stuff and it doesn't mean anything to you. It might be pretty, but it doesn't have a lot of, real meaning behind it, and then you tend to be tired of it by the next year. But when you're buying vintage stuff, it's stuff that you're going to want to hang on to for a long time. And the also nice thing about it is if you do get tired of some of your vintage pieces, you can sell them, you can let them go, you can redonate them, because maybe you didn't pay a lot for it anyways. So you don't have to feel bad about letting someone else love the piece if you become tired of it. So it's kind of a win for everybody. And I'm also going to do another video down the road on if you are like me and you just love buying vintage and you have too much vintage and you want to become a reseller of vintage to support your habit because you can't keep it all. I'm going to do a video on different ways that you could be a reseller if that's something interesting for you. So look for that in the coming weeks as well. All right, so here's some of the current trends that have been popular for the last few years and moving into 2023. And these are styles that really are conducive to using vintage in them and different kinds of vintage. So the first one I want to talk about is mid-century. And there's kind of two design styles in mid-century that people are really familiar with or that they use a lot in their decor. And that's either the Scandinavian look, where you have a lot of the sleek, clean lines of the mid-century with a lot of teak pieces, a lot of geometric thing, practical design, sometimes a little futuristic. There's a lot of wood, plastic, metal involved. There's a lot of beautiful artwork that came out of the mid-century that's used in Scandinavian decor. I'm going to try to pop in a few pictures here as examples, but definitely mid-century modern has been hot for many years. I don't see it going away anytime soon. I think little pieces here and there can incorporate into anyone's decor. You don't have to be a truly just Scandinavian mid-century style. There's a lot of, beautiful vintage pieces that you can incorporate into that look. The other mid-century style would be the boho design. And well, maybe it's not as popular as it was a few years ago. There's still a really beautiful natural aesthetic to that. And there's a lot of beautiful textiles and like carved wood and tribal and ethnic kind of pieces. Of course, the macrame. There's a lot of beautiful vintage things that we can find that incorporate into the boho aesthetic. And I mean, the boho, I think, is kind of changing as it goes. It's not as severe as it was before. I think it's turning into different things. Like it's becoming a little more clean, streamlined, but definitely vintage fits into that category. The other really popular one right now I would call is the modern organic style, and I think that one really incorporates a lot of the beautiful like primitive pieces that you see, like the primitive wood, like very simple, basic. You've seen the tables, the bowls, anything that's made of stone, anything that looks like it's handmade or hand carved or hand shaped or hand forged. That and has beautiful, like just organic, rough, like circular lines. Really looks beautiful in that modern organic design trend. So two of the other ones I'll talk about are the cottagecore and the grand millennial. And I think those are some of the major ones we think of right now when we think of using vintage in our decor. Now, cottagecore being more of the, I wouldn't call it shabby chic, but like the English country cottage in the garden kind of thing, where you see a lot of floral patterns and ginghams and like the blue willow pottery, and you think of like tea time and picnics, and just pretty little things that are a little more unrefined, look great in the cottage core. Whereas the grand millennial, we're going to call that like the more adult version, or that's more the English manor compared to the English country cottage. And so with the grand millennial, you're going to see a little more sophisticated antiques, things your grandmother's handed down to you. So you might have more silver plated things instead of the stoneware. You're going to have fine bone china and chintzes and just pieces that are a little more refined and upscale and polished. But there's still a ton of character and beautiful things that you can find to bring into the grand millennial style. Tons of furniture, many decor pieces. You're going to look at like all the furniture, the mahoganies, the cherry woods, the oaks, as opposed to the cottage core, where you're going to get more like primitive, maybe painted furniture that's going to look really cute in that. So there is vintage style. There's vintage pieces for every style. So I mean, go out there and just buy what you love. You might like mixing a few of these things together, like I said, but definitely, no matter what style you're decorating your house, you can find places to add some vintage into your decor, whether it's a few small little decorative items or whether it's big pieces of furniture. There's so many things that you can add in. Now, I didn't mention modern farmhouse because I think it's just a given that it's been around for so long, and it is one style that definitely lends itself to vintage decor because That's what a lot of it is based on. And I don't see it going away anytime soon, though I do see modern farmhouse as becoming a little more streamlined and clean, but it will never go out of style. So let me know in the comments, what design style do you think you decorate with in your home? And what are some of your favorite kind of vintage pieces that you love to pick up? Maybe you are collecting something. Is there a collection that you are gathering? Let us know. I'm curious to see what everyone that watches, what's their favorite part of using vintage and what kind of pieces that you're gathering. So let me know. I'd love to hear. With that being said, I wish everybody happy hunting with your vintage. Just get out there and see what you can find. And if you liked the videos, I would love it if you gave a subscribe or a like to this video. That would just really make my day and keep me making these videos for you. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Wildish Living.